Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
Literally read your tweet. Oh my god.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. I don't know how, but I thought I heard you going over before I unmuted you.
Oh, well, hopefully not.
I thought I heard something. Did you guys hear it? I know they must have. That's interesting. Anyway, welcome to the FPV news. He was muted. He was definitely... Hang on a second. Okay, you're muted. Now say something.
Test.
Oh, I know what happened. Okay. I missed a step in that setup I did last week when I made it so our volume would always be matched. Interesting. I'm glad you were silently waiting during the song instead of just humming to yourself or something.
Yeah.
Welcome to the FPV news, everybody. It's always, my favorite part about the news, Blunty, is I guess I like learning about new stuff in FPV, which is, one of the reasons I like to stay up on stuff, and you do a lot of research throughout the week. But I just like hanging out with you for an hour, and riffing.
Yeah. It's a fun time to talk about FPV and hang out.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what we're going to do. But I just want to take a second and thank you for being here. Hey, so excited. That is an excited person. Wow. Join us. Come over to the right side of the screen. Yes. We have to take a second and appreciate all the GIFs from the patrons over in the Discord server. Thank you guys so much for being here. Yeah, okay. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with the news. And we always like to start the news with public service announcements, little items that are so significant that we want you to put them right up front in case they affect you. Blunty, and the first one concerns anyone who's using Express LRS. Well, not anyone.
Yeah, specifically SPI. If you're using an SPI AIO board, there may be some concern about the future. Currently, everything's fine, and in the future, when the updates happen, presumably everything will be fine as long as you stay on 2.x, the 2.x, the current firmware system. But basically, moving forward, any of the new features that will require things that the SPI can't handle basically will not be supported by those older SPI boards. So, you should kind of know going forward if you're buying these SPI AIO boards that they're going to, be missing features and possibly be missing updates. And you might have to run if you want to update Express LRS, you have to run a nightly, or wait for a release. So.
This breaks my heart too. I just got done reviewing the MoBeetle, the Happy Model MoBeetle, and the flight controller on that thing is amazing. It's got built-in Express LRS and built-in 400 milliwatt Open VTX. And for Tiny Whoops, it's just I think it's the best Tiny Whoop flight controller you can get today, I would argue. And today it's no problem because it's got Express LRS 2.0, which is not the latest, but still. But as soon as Express LRS 3.0 comes out, then oops, it won't work. You won't be able to update until they update Betaflight to whatever 4.0 because the code is locked into Betaflight, and you have to update Betaflight to update Express LRS and the SPI receivers. And that's a real problem. I'm torn. Today, right now, are you having trouble with your light?
Yeah, I'm just looking at pages and it's switching because I can't. That's my main light. So.
I got you.
Yeah, but I'm trying to fix something before we. So yeah.
Got you. So today, would you because this is from Brian Malin, Cat and Bry, who is an Express LRS dev. So I mean, his word has weight, and he says don't buy SPI-based Express LRS gear. But in the Tiny Whoop world, what does that leave you? What does that leave you? It doesn't leave you a lot.
Yeah, there's a couple boards that do that will do what do you call it, serial instead of SPI. So they put the chipset on the board and then they do serial, so it still will be updatable. It's a separate device essentially on the board. So I mean, that's hopefully moving forward. More people will decide to do that so that it's it doesn't have to be bound to Betaflight. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you basically stick with the old chipset. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of changes that you're going to miss currently. In the future, you won't be able to do the Wi-Fi updates that people will have, and the Wi-Fi connection to Betaflight stuff. And I'm sure there'll be more features you'll be missing out on. But it's not like it's the end of the world, especially for a Whoop.
Yeah. I'm not sure that there are many UART-based boards. Like the Beta FPV AIO that used to be UART-based switched to SPI. And maybe in the future we'll see manufacturers switch back, especially if the Express LRS devs are saying, nah. But at least as of today, that Happy Model flight controller is a real freaking beast. So I didn't put that in my review, and I guess I kind of have to mention that, we might not want to buy this. It's going to be painful, but I should go back and re-record that part. So
yeah.
Frank Nicholas, yeah, I know they don't have to use SPI. It's just that most of them do. And so these days, at least, hopefully we'll see that change. But we got one more PSA, Blunty. And this is something I didn't know was really a thing. But apparently, if you are a racer who just bangs your sticks to the end of the stick travel, then you can accidentally bring your OSD up or switch rate profiles or something while you're flying. It never occurred to me that anyone would make stick commands while flying by accident.
Yeah, you got to warm up sometimes. You got to make sure your fingers are limber and you're all ready to go, right? And while you're doing that, you might accidentally switch your rates and stuff, which many people have done before races and ruin their races.
Yep.
So Wyman, who we've brought a couple of videos from you before, has another wonderful video that I'm a big fan of. His content, but yeah, he brought this feature where Betaflight now has a mode setting in the modes tab that you can use to turn this off, called Stick Commands Disable.
Now, are you suggesting that they're accidentally inputting stick commands during flight, or just while kind of fiddling around before flight?
Right, you're getting ready for the race. You're on the starting line. You're ready to fly. You're not armed, so you're not worried about anything, and you're just flipping your sticks around, getting ready and warmed up. And then you go to arm, and you're the wrong rate, so you can't even arm, or something's totally messed up. So
a lot of people may not realize that you can do that. That rate profiles and PID profiles and so forth can be changed by correct combinations. I see. I thought you were telling me that the racers had like low rates, and during flight were going like, full stick, full throttle. I guess if you go full throttle, I don't know. Maybe
aren't they disabled when you arm?
I would think so.
I was under the impression most of them are disabled when you arm. But yeah, the problem is they're sitting on the line before arming, and they're getting warmed up, and then they're accidentally switching stuff. So
yeah, no, I understand. I don't know what you mean, Crunked. I think you're mistaken. I am definitely subscribed to Limon. I don't know what you were seeing there a minute ago. But I guess you must have been. I guess you must have. I don't know. Don't rewind. But I'm sub to Limon. Heck yeah. Alrighty. So I got that. If you're a racer who's ever done that by accident, now you can avoid it. I got one more update. It's not a PSA, but I got an update about the Flowstate film. That I wanted to sneak in here at the beginning. In case you are new here, Flowstate is a film that I worked on. It's a documentary about FPV that I worked on with James Christensen, and we've been getting closer and closer to release. I don't have firm dates for you now, but I can tell you that we are working on mastering a Blu-ray. If you're Blu-ray, you got any Blu-rays, Blunty?
No.
No. Well,
no way to play a Blu-ray.
A surprising number of people have said, "Can we buy it on Blu-ray?" And James is like, "Yeah, let's put it out on Blu-ray." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Apparently that's a thing still." But the advantage will be that the Blu-ray will have we shot like 3 hours of we edited like 3 hours of footage, thinking that it would be maybe 3 little mini documentaries, 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then that didn't, we were like, maybe we should cut this down to like an hour and a half. So the Blu-ray will contain all of the content that we shot and edited. And so if you're a true fan, you really want to see every single thing. We also have submitted it to I don't know what you would call it. It's a company that submits your film to all the streaming services. Like, I don't know if it's all of them, but it's like Amazon Prime, Apple TV. I don't know about Netflix, and a whole bunch of other streaming services, some of whom I had never heard of before. But basically, it's like a clearinghouse. In exchange for a percentage of your film, they just know the steps to get you on those services. And so we submitted to them, and we got our first QC notes back from them, and they said, you can't shout out other websites, and you can't shout out other social media handles. Like, if you put this on, like, iTunes, they're not going to want to see people plugging other stuff than iTunes. I'm like, oh, shit. So we have to do a little editing there. But I'm happy to tell you that is... I don't want to give you a date, but it's soon. Like, we're going to pull the trigger on the Blu-rays. We're going to get a master of the Blu-ray. We're going to review it, make sure it's up to snuff, and then we're going to say, okay, make us 2,000 of them. And then we're going to get a box of 2,000 Blu-rays, and we're going to start selling them. And the timing for the streaming varies because it depends on, they have to approve you, but it is it's a reasonable amount of time, and I'm happy to say with that we're going to do an announcement soon that you'll be able to get it. So
cool.
Anyway, that's the update.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah,
I'm super happy. We'll probably do something big as a celebration of some kind. We'll have to figure out what that is. Okay, now we come to the title news of the night. Info about the DJI and Walksnail chipset.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know how to start here. So if you want to pull up the tweet from FPV.WTF. Okay.
This is where we're going to start.
Yeah, so FPV.WTF, who was the ones who did the margarine leak, right? Who did the root hack, basically. And then also that's Junus, who did the FPV out video hack originally. Basically, he was going through some sourcing and information and was able to locate a Leadcore logo, or what he says a Leadcore logo, on the DJI P1 chip from an early FCC filing. I've actually got an imager album with that in it. That's easier for you, so you don't have to find
Make
it.
it easy to, yeah.
But yeah, that's the chip there, and that's the early P1. That's the first located P1 that anybody has seen, and he claims that is a Leadcore logo in the corner. It's different than the current Leadcore logo, but supposedly at the time of prototyping, that was like a prototyping logo that is also located in other FCC documentation for Leadcore.
And so the P1 chip being, I think a lot of people are hearing these names and maybe not understanding the implication. The P1 chip is kind of the chipset that makes it possible for DJI to have low latency, high definition wireless video link. It's got an MPEG encoder. I think it uses MP5, and it's got a LTE radio chipset with some customized stuff that actually handles the wireless stuff. Is that basically in the realm of correct, Blunty?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the coders or encoder. I don't know about any of that part, but it is LTE based, OTA. Yeah, so over the air is LTE based. But yeah, so that's like the main thing that enables DJI stuff to talk to each other, and that enables DJI software to work and all that stuff, right? And so that being
the significance of it being Leadcore is that the P1 chip, everyone I know I assumed, and I think a lot of people did, that it was custom silicon that DJI developed, but Leadcore is a generic system that like anyone could buy. And it's been rumored that DJI customized the Leadcore chipset rather than developing everything from scratch. And the implication there would be that if Leadcore is publicly available, maybe this DJI P1 chip is not so proprietary as everyone thought. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah, we basically know that Leadcore works with HearLink and Autel. Two other companies who do that wireless video stuff. And so it was presumed that P1 was Leadcore, but it wasn't for sure. So finding this basically says that, like, hey, this is most likely Leadcore in here, since we see this prototyping, chip in there that is labeled P1. And so that being the case, it definitely kind of leads to that. But then also, he says in the second tweet here, the idea here is that somebody else, it seems like, got a hold of the same stuff from Leadcore. So Leadcore basically passed on their LTE technology to a few people. So now we think, from this P1 thing, it's DJI and then Autel and HearLink. So there's another company, and that is Artosyn. And so Artosyn has this chipset, basically, that, these values here, the AR8211, and then the transceivers there he's got listed. And then that also kind of leads us to basically like, hey, if what we're seeing in the system, in Walksnail system, is super similar, but they're claiming it's not DJI, how could that be possible? Well, one of the ways that could be possible is certainly them using a chipset that's super similar, because it was based out of Leadcore's same LTE technology. So he shot a message over to them, and that's the first link in that imager album. Is that first message there is what he sent to them. But he basically said, if you pop back out of that real quick and go to that, first the first image though. So basically, they tried to reach out before they released this info and asked, it's basically Cuxon Microelectronics is the company who's behind this chipset, and they said they're already working with existing partners on FPV systems, which is interesting because that would lead us to another partner. Yeah, there's another pointer to say, like, well, there's no other FPV system that can compete with DJI, right? And then so you might say, well, okay, well, maybe they don't know how to use the tech. Maybe the tech they have is not great, and maybe they don't know the specs. Maybe it's not where it needs to be. So then we've got the rest of the stuff here, which is basically, this is a translated article. CoolCore is actually Cuxon, the company Cuxon that we're talking about here. It's just the way the translator works. It's translating it to CoolCore. But essentially, this Cuxon Microsystems stuff looks to be spec'd out very similar to what our DJI links are, or what almost a better DJI link would be. As we go down, we see, very clean board designs, small stuff, well-designed stuff.
It does look very similar. I mean,
and then we go down and we get 15-kilometer distance. We get anti-interference ability because they're using OFDM and stuff.
Look
right?
here, 4 antennas.
Yeah.
And
then we go to and then to me, the most damning thing, I think, is the bottom part, or at least the thing that leads us to believe it's so similar, is if we go to the next image, we get H.265 encoder, which, from what we've heard, right, is what is in the Walksnail versus H.264. Right, that was the early word. And then they talk about in here, 40 millisecond, 1060p, 1080p 60, right?
That's Walksnail.
Yeah, we get wireless transmission of less than 20 milliseconds for normal wireless transmission.
That's Walksnail.
Right in the pocket, right?
Yeah.
And then we get, can be widely used in drones is the first thing they list. It's just interesting to see that they say they're working with an FPV company, and then you look at the specs, and the specs sure do match a lot of stuff, and it looks like they came out of Leadcore technology, which we can see now is where the P1 also came from. There's a lot of pieces that you could link together here to say, like, even if this isn't them, it seems like somebody else in FPV is working with this company to develop a wireless video link system, right?
So what the story seems to be is that there was the Leadcore system, which contained a video encoder and an LTE chipset and so forth.
It was fat. It was basically a lot more.
It was a general system on a chip.
Yes.
For example, it might have had, I don't know if it did, it might have had like a 3D graphics engine that they didn't need.
It's got extra stuff, that was kind of, unnecessary and made it cost more. So
then DJI says to Leadcore, hey, we want a stripped down version of your SoC that just does the video encoding and the LTE. And we can put more of them on a die. We can get them cheaper, and we can, and we could get the price down. And that becomes the DJI P1 chipset. Then at some point, that company goes on and develops this other chipset, which now seems to match the specs of what the Walksnail system is advertising.
Yeah, I'll just say it seems more like, so Leadcore had this general chipset, right? There's general SoC, and then DJI went to them just like Autel did and just like HereLink did. And now it seems like just like this Cookson company did, and said, hey, can you work with us to develop a version of your Leadcore chipset that works for us for this wireless video system? And it seems like they basically just gave a very similar thing to each of the companies that came to them and licensed it out to each of them, right?
So
they called DJI's the P1, and they called Autel something else, and they called HereLink something else. And they called
first of all, but I want to be clear that we've done speculation in the past, but this is not really pure speculation. There's evidence here.
Yeah, there's some evidence,
the idea that DJI developed the P1 chipset from scratch, and it's this highly proprietary ASIC that only they own, appears not to be true.
Sure, and that's something that we've seen. Mads Tech had an article recently, we reported on that, and then FPV.WTF had kind of commented on that stuff before. Junis did in the interview a little bit that he did with, I think, Grosser as well. So, like, there's that information has started to get out there a little bit, but now it seems like, after rubbing it all out, it seems like at the end of the day, not only was it like a custom built for them, but maybe it wasn't so custom, right? Maybe it was like custom as in like signed under a few different companies, and one of them maybe this other company that says they're working on FPV.
How did Walksnail, who the hell is Walksnail? No offense, Walksnail. How did Walksnail become one of this, like we got DJI, you got Autel, and this company has this very, very valuable low latency wireless technology that they can make work. And then along comes Walksnail's like, hey guys, can we get in the club? And they're like, yeah, sure. How'd that happen? I mean, we don't know.
I mean, maybe somebody, who knows? Maybe somebody knows somebody. I mean, we really don't know enough about it, right? Like, who know? It could just be that somebody knew somebody at Leadcore, or maybe somehow that stuff went up more publicly for acquisition. I think Leadcore went under at some point, or was dissolved. I believe that's the case anyway. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
So we'll close this story out by saying this answers the question, or at least starts to answer the question for people who say that the Walksnail system is DJI. And it depends on how you define that sentence. Because if by saying Walksnail is DJI, you mean that a person in DJI corporate is participating in this sort of downstream or upstream, then the answer is no. We have no indication that DJI Corporate is in any way involved. But if you mean that if you chase this far enough up the line, you end up in the same place as DJI, it seems like the answer may be yes. That they're both sourced sort of from the same route, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not the same, though, because this appears to be the next generation. The Walksnail system supports 1080, and it has slightly lower latency, which may be because it uses H.265 instead of H.264.
Sure, but we also don't know about what decisions they made otherwise, right? Like maybe it'll have a lower bit rate when it actually comes down to it, or maybe the compression will be differently, or maybe the macro blocking won't work as well, or they could have made other trade-offs that was based on a similar chipset, or it could be a future revision of it that works better. I don't know that we know that yet.
Jory in the Discord says Walksnail specifically said it was a whole new system, so liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, if they've taken an SoC, I mean, like the same Qualcomm SoC is in like a bajillion cell phones. So when I make a new cell phone, if it got that Qualcomm SoC in it, that doesn't mean that I didn't make a new cell phone. It just means I, pulled it off the shelf. So I don't agree that they are liar, liar, pants on fire by saying that.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's
same
definitely
system means same chipset, not like similar chipset based with other software running on it and stuff.
Different software, for example. Well, I'm happy to tell you guys that I got a shipment notification for my Avatar. Sorry, it's coming from Rotor Riot, so I should really call it the Fat Shark Dominator HD, at least out of politeness. But it is coming to me. I know the release date. I can't tell you when it is. I'm not going to fiddle around with that. But one of the things I will, now that they've shipped it, I can tell the truth. One of the things that I will 100% be doing after I finish the review is opening the damn thing up and looking inside and seeing what's in there. And then hopefully we'll find out some things. So.
Yeah. Probably all be etched away, but at least maybe we can see from a software side if there's anything.
Well, no.
Who knows? Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. Alrighty, well, exciting stuff. Moving on.
Matt, here's what I'll say. Moving on from that, I just want to say that, like, even if that Cookson thing, the Artosyn chipset, is not in the Walksnail system, it's in some future FPV system. Like, someone is developing FPV with that chipset because that's what Cookson told us. So, to me, like, that's exciting regardless because someone else is coming out with a similar system, and maybe it's Walksnail, maybe it's somebody else, right?
I would like to let everybody know that the Walksnail president in the chat is probably a joke account, and you should not take that too seriously. I only say that because Quick Flash is like, hey, the president of Walksnail's in the chat. I think that Kevin didn't notice. Yesterday on my live stream, there were some joke accounts, and I thought they were kind of funny. And I said, listen, you guys, you're welcome to make joke accounts as long as they stay tasteful and as long as they stay funny. You make as many joke accounts as you want. I find it hilarious. So I'm pretty sure that Walksnail President is one of them. And that stands. You stay tasteful and you stay funny. You can do as many joke accounts as you want. Quick Flash says he's been trolled. Great. Okay, moving on. Is my bald head back? Somebody made an account. JB's bald head. All right, let's move on to our next story about the chip shortage. And Blunty, the title that you gave was, "Where is the real chip shortage coming from?" And I thought, oh, well, I mean, yes, let's find out. Where is the real chip shortage coming from, Blunty?
Yeah, so this is a video that links, that we've linked to here. That's a great video. It goes over basically the whole... the whole idea of what's going on, but it rings very similar to the story that we heard from, we reported on pretty early from Mads Tech, and the story that we reported on a little bit after that, just generally speaking, about the fact that, the real shortage is in trailing edge. So the idea is that trailing edge semiconductors, right, are less in demand in some cases, but in some other cases they're very high in demand. And also those machines are being repurposed to do early parts of different processes for smaller nanometer stuff. So when the smaller nanometer processes run out of whatever's going on, then they need more people from the other equipment, or more stuff from the other equipment. So, and there was also the fact that it was all trailing edge, so people were dropping off building it, and it was assumed that it wouldn't be needed as much, and that also means that prices went up on all that stuff because it was harder to make, and those machines weren't being produced that produce these. There's a lot of factors, right, that all kind of went into all these parts and pieces that cause this issue. And this reviews really well from a technical perspective what exactly is happening with those trailing edge semiconductors, and that's directly affecting us because we use those trailing edge semiconductors in our flight. So
yeah, things like our flight controllers and so forth use those trailing edge semiconductors. It addresses one of the things that I've sort of wondered about, which is okay, we've got shortages of Intel and AMD microprocessors, really, really small nanometer stuff, really, really cutting edge stuff, right? And there's only 2 factories in the world that make it, fine, whatever, and you can't make enough of them. But like commodity stuff, like these little AMD, or STM32 rather, microprocessors, MPU gyros, those are not very small nanometer processes. They should be cheap and inexpensive and plentiful, and yet they seem to be just as difficult to get as we're seeing shortages. And this is an interesting way of explaining how those things are related, that a shortage in one sucks capacity from another. Yeah,
basically nobody knew this was coming, and then everybody started to build out like you normally would into smaller nanometer processes, and decide where to spend money, and then all of a sudden there was a huge demand. So this does talk about, I think there's 6 like major buildings, like major fab plants coming up from different people across the world. So I think it's 6 like huge ones that will make a big difference. I think Intel's doing a big one and stuff. So I think in like 3 to 6 years, it will be impossible for this to be a problem. But I think before that, it's going to be like this slow trickle into them building up the ability to do all these things and then source all the stuff for them. So,
well, sadly, prices tend not to go down once they've come up. So this, we're going to sound like our parents talking about when bread was a nickel. We're like, I used to be able to buy a Diatone F3 for $25.
Yeah,
I flew it uphill both ways. Anyway, all right. That's an interesting link. It's linked down in the video description if people want to check it out. It's an 11-minute video and well worth a watch if you want to find out more about the chip shortage and why it's happening and maybe when it might end. Next up, we've got a little announcement here. FPV Great announced their announcement was kind of confusing. By the way, if you guys don't know, do you guys know about FPV Crate? FPV Crate is a website. There's a store. They sell stuff, but they also sell subscription boxes. And I think that's part of the confusion, Blunty, because they announced they were... What did they announce?
I don't know. It's not clear.
Right.
If you move that banner on the website, you can see up at the top.
I don't even see on their front page.
Yeah, you basically have to move the banner. There you go. Get in on the last FPV Crate.
Oh, okay. The last FPV Crate. And I had to ask. I reached out to Artem Corbin, who runs the company as far as I know. And I said, Artem, are you just stopping shipping boxes? Or are you going out of business? And he said, no, we're still... They have a full store. They sell the Tiny Trainer. They sell Radio Master. They have a limited selection of stuff, but some stuff they have really good supplies of. And he said they're still going to run the store. They're just having a lot of trouble keeping a subscription box going in 2022.
Yep. I can understand that. Everything's more expensive. Shipping's more expensive, and less people probably want to spend money on that stuff. So I imagine it's tough.
I've always thought that FPV subscription boxes were a dubious proposition.
Hot take. All subscription boxes are terrible.
Okay, now hang on. Hang on now. I have a hot sauce subscription box. And every month I get 3 new hot sauces. And, generally I'm excited to get them. Right? Because it's just a different variety. And sometimes there's a good one in there. I feel like there are products where subscription boxes can work.
I guess so. I mean, I don't want to overpay for hot sauce. But I understand what you mean. But
you think I'm overpaying?
It's just I'm not creative, so I get what you're saying. But it's like, hey, I don't feel like picking a new hot sauce every month, so you can send me some, right? Yeah. But you're paying more for the shipping and the boxes and their labeling and give it together.
I guess I should check. I mean, like, I thought the deal was you're supposed to save money.
I bet you're
and
paying
get free stuff.
Here's the question, like, maybe if you would buy every hot sauce individually, but how many of them are uneaten, right? Like, that's part of the question, too.
None. I eat them all.
You eat them all? Okay. Maybe you're an outlier.
Okay.
Maybe
here's my understanding of how subscription box. Like the first subscription boxes I ever became aware of were makeup subscription boxes. I don't know if they were literally the first, but I obviously don't wear makeup, but I talked to people who like makeup and like subscription boxes, and what they said was the makeup companies, there is so much margin in makeup that if you can sell somebody a lipstick that they like or something, then you'll make your money back instantly. And so they can afford to give out these tiny samples at a loss because they make it back, and people who are like, oh, this is really good, I like this shade, and then they buy it. And the problem I've always seen is that FPV doesn't have high margins, and it doesn't, the parts are generally not, like, you get, like, if you may or may not like the shade of lipstick you get, but you know, at the end of the day, you're probably not like super picky. Whereas if I have, you know, a flight controller, I may never use it because it's like, it's just not the kind I want to use or whatever. It always seemed like FPV was not the right business for subscription boxes because of those things.
Yeah, every box I've looked at has been exceedingly expensive for what you get compared to buying the things I would have bought individually. You know what I mean? Like that's been my case for pretty much everything. Like even doing the HelloFresh or whatever. Like when you actually look at what you get out of that, like unless you're right, like you're like it might.
No, you're paying more for HelloFresh, 100%.
Right. So stuff like that. I don't know. There's just a lot of those boxes and subscription things that are like. I don't know.
HelloFresh, you're paying for the recipe and the prep, and you're paying more for sure, but you're paying for the recipe and the prep. And you know, we've had HelloFresh at times and enjoyed it. Then we cancel it. But the FPV subscription boxes, like you get, like the best ones I think were like FPV Crate, where at least you get a good T-shirt. Although if you didn't like it, I like FPV shirts.
But that's the whole thing is like who buys an FPV shirt every month? Like, so you now have given an extra cost to yourself every month that you've decided is worth it because you think there's value in the shirt. That's my point. Like, I totally get what you're saying, but like, I would not have bought the shirt otherwise. So the box has made me spend more money that I would not have spent on something I would not have purchased. Yeah, right? No, that's not a good deal. And then so often the box comes and like I've seen the back end of this. I remember when I did a Rotor Riot subscription box back when Quad Box was a thing, and I was astounded at how hard those guys worked to try to find things that came in under their shockingly small budget. And it's not like there's and I said, well, can we put the JB? This was way back when the very first JBF7 was coming out, and I said, well, we should put the JBF7 in the box, and they were like, yeah, sure, we can move 1,000 of them, and I was like, great, and they were like, okay, but here's what we need to pay for them, and I was like, guys, we're gonna sell all of them anyway. Why would you? I mean, no offense, but we're not going to give them to you for half price, just so you can take away from people who would have bought them at full price. And they were like, yeah, no, we understand. And I was like, okay, so what are we going to do? It was very, very challenging, and I just didn't see how they made it work. And then eventually the boxes go out of business, and I'm like, oh, I guess it doesn't work. Yeah, my point is those factors are what make me think that shipping those boxes don't make any sense. Like the fact that they have to make those decisions, and the fact that you have to add the shipping, and you had to make custom boxes, and you have to maintain a website, and you have a stock room and storehouse, and you have somebody packing those things, and like all those things don't happen if I go buy my own shit.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you're creating all this excess. So I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Yep. Maybe there's a way to make it work. And that's what we see. Every FPV subscription box eventually goes out of business after a year or two.
I was going to start an FPV subscription box. And then I looked into it, and it was terrible value. Like I could not make it work for the value did not make any sense. I was like, this is crazy. It was like I was going to do prop drop or something, right? Where you give people new props every month because everybody's going to use props. Yeah. But then like feasibly, the money just doesn't work out. Like there's no way to make it work for the value, right? No matter how you scale it, no matter how many sets of props you get in there, right? You're paying for boxes and packaging and like overhead. And it just like feels like you're just cheating people on selling them props. And I'm not making the money. It's all in the overhead.
Right. And the thinking, I think, the thinking of like stores, like Rotor Riot had Quad Box, And then FPV Crate is affiliated with Get FPV and Lumineer. The thinking is that, hey, we got all this shit sitting on our shelves and no one's buying it. I know, we'll put it in the boxes. Now, I'm not quoting anybody there, and I'm sure that the people behind the boxes would say that's not our intent, but I guarantee you it's been in the back of their head, and they're like, listen, this is a perfectly good flight controller. Nobody's buying it because it's not the latest and greatest, but we'll put it in the box. It'll be fine. And they think that's how they're going to get their margins. And it turns out you don't have that much stuff sitting on the shelf that anyone actually wants. Yep. And then eventually you go through it, and then you have nothing left, and your subscribers are mad. Is how it seems to work.
I'll tell you something I do like the idea of, because I feel like it's a more obvious. I don't know. I'm not as mad about the Newbie Drone boxes. Newbie Drone sometimes does the, hey, spend $50, we'll send you some random stuff, because that feels more like, you're not subscribing to this monthly. You're just like, hey, I'm ready to spend $100 and I don't care what I get.
And if they only do it every few months or 6 months or however many, chances are they're doing it because they've got good stuff. Like, people are saying in the chat, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but they're saying my FPV Crate was a good box. And part of the reason it was a good box is because we were just about to release the QAV-S JB frame. So it was a new product that we wanted to get publicity for, so we were willing to give it away at a lower price to build publicity. And number two, it was a frame, so frames have decent margin. Once you finish the R&D cost on the frame, the actual production costs are relatively low, and it was made by Lumineer, so there was no distributor margin, so they could afford to give that % away, and they could get it in the box, and people really liked it. But those stars don't align very often, and that's why the boxes often are just shitty.
Yep. So I see a lot of people in chat mentioning that they were happy with their FPV Crate, and I'll say I saw just as many people come in monthly to the Discord or my random chats and say they were super unhappy with what they got in their FPV Crate, and they were sad that they got it. So I think that's the problem, is like some people will enjoy it and some people won't, but everybody signed up for the same crate, all that stuff. So, and it's just a question of what % of your customers can you keep happy each month? Because eventually people will get bored, get a bad one, and decide to unsub. And the last box that they get, they'll be like, this box was shitty. I'm out of here. So there'll always be somebody who thinks your box was shitty. It's just what % of people keep coming back. Yeah.
All right. Well, that story went on longer than I thought it was, but it was a really interesting discussion. Thank you. And if you missed any part of that discussion, I would like to let you know that FPV... that Joshua God damn it. Pardon me. Sorry. I don't try to swear on stream. Joshua Bardwell Livestream Clips is a channel on YouTube run by Blunty, where you can get clips from my live streams, including all of the FPV news, but also stuff from our live streams. And would love to have you a subscriber. Joshua Bardwell Livestream Clips. Just go look it up. You're doing great work over there, Blunty. Especially on the thumbnails. Blunty, you're crushing it on the thumbnails. This pancakes versus waffles thumbnail, so good.
I'm trying. All of them aren't perfect, but we're getting there, right? We're learning.
Yeah. Slowly gaining subs. We'd love to have you over there as a subscriber. If you're unable to watch, basically the pitch is if you enjoy the live streams, but you can't always watch the whole live stream, go sub over there. As long as we're doing plugs, Blunty, we should plug your website. You want to do a little plug for your website?
Sure, yeah. It's blunty.com is a website where you can go and check out my links, my information. You've got my Patreon link there. You can give me some money if you'd like to support me. Also, I've got some a troubleshooting one-on-one service. So if you'd like to get some help, if you just want to get on the phone with me and tell me your problems or just talk to me for an hour, whatever you want to do for an hour, you get $50 for that. No video though. So you can't show me everything you want to show me. There are limits, but we'll do video to help you troubleshoot. And then it's all over Discord. We typically do that over Discord. $50 an hour to help you figure out whatever you need to figure out. So.
That's a great price, honestly, especially in this day and age. $50 an hour is a bargain. So
I'll just say a lot of new pilots end up asking me just a bunch of questions so they don't feel like Googling. So I think that's a good solution for that. That's something I wish I had done when I was new. Is just you save a week of Googling and watching videos and learning random tidbits and stuff by just asking a whole list of questions real quick. It's pretty cool. So happy to help.
Alrighty, that's our pluggables. Let's move on with the news. We got a little community spotlight here. This is by Jai Smith. He posted this on Facebook, and it solves a problem with UFL connectors and UFL wires getting tugged. This is the best picture, I think, right here. Basically, it's this little thing that goes around one of your M3 screws and holds your UFL connector, your UFL wire in place. So if your antenna gets tugged, it doesn't rip the UFL off, and it keeps your UFL from getting tugged and coming off the connector. And it is incredibly simple and clever, and I just freaking love it.
Yep, absolutely. This is a super smart idea that I was surprised nobody had made, and this is a perfect idea. So this is really cool. And yeah, this is definitely something to print if you've got a printer, because this is going to take you like 3 minutes to print, and will save your UFL connectors. So pretty cool.
He's got the. Do we have a link to the? Yeah, it's on Thingiverse. We have a link to
He's also encouraging manufacturers to use these. You know, so if you're a manufacturer, go print these and put them on your build so that you don't your binofly. So you protect UFLs.
All right, great. Now we just want to get that out there, that is out there, and thanks to Jai Smith for making that. He originally didn't post the STL, and he was like, hey, look, here it is. And he was like, come on, this is just knock it up, and how hard is this? And people were like, please, STL, sir, may I have another? And he's like, fine, you bastards. And he posted the STL. I sure appreciate it. What's next, Blunty?
All right. The Mars Copter is back in the news because it almost died in Mars. It almost died on Mars.
Yeah, wasn't it running out of power because of dust or something?
They've had a lot of problems lately, but they were able to keep it going with the dust and stuff, and they were just like basically shutting it down and letting it charge more, stuff like that. But unfortunately, they had a sensor failure, and that sensor failure was kind of calling it dead for the flights, but they were able to build a patch on the ground that they actually knew ahead of time this was probably going to happen. So they built a patch that they were ready to upload, and they uploaded a patch to stop. Basically, there was a problem, I believe, with the sensor that tells it how to orient the copter when it's on the ground or lifting up. So like it looks down at the ground and uses a sensor to detect the distance. And now, they can't use that anymore. So they were able to patch it out, and they can use other sensors to trick it now. So pretty cool.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Firmware updates on Mars are always interesting to me. I think that's pretty cool stuff. So.
I do a firmware update here on my desk, and it's a nail biter. I can't imagine what's involved in doing a firmware update on another planet.
You don't want to brick the Mars Copter.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time something dumb
you can't
like
plug
that
back into. You can't plug that back into the computer.
Right. Can you please hold down bootloader button, dear Martian?
Yeah.
No. Alrighty, Blunty. Next up.
They'll bring over the Mars rover, and it can press the bootloader button.
Yeah, right. The rover needs to go press the bootloader button on the copter. That makes sense to me. Yeah. Awesome. We got a little PSA. I guess it's not a PSA, or we would have been at the beginning. The FAA is having a meeting, probably about something bad. I didn't even read this. It's probably something bad that they want to do that we don't like, and it has public questions. So we need to go and be like, rubble. Did I get it? Have I basically summed up the story?
Sort of. It's a little better than that. This is literally just a meeting so they can talk to people. And so basically, earlier this month, and I think the end of last month, they took comments, both written and oral comments from people on their website. And basically, you could schedule to talk to them or send an oral comment into them, and they will play and react to them on the live stream that they're doing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. This is more of an outreach than I've seen them do directly. Sometimes they've gone on other channels, right, and talked to people, but this is more a direct community interaction meeting sort of deal. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle some of the comments that people have said. So that'll happen tomorrow on the FAA's YouTube page or the FAA's Facebook page. I'm interested to see what comes out of this. It may be nothing, but this is all based on the BVLOS stuff, so the Beyond Visual Line of Sight stuff that the ARC commented on. We talked about that before, but that's the stuff that talks about the common sense stuff about under trees and creating a different BVLOS environment that is more sensible for us, right? So we can, do things like wear goggles and still fly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are there suggestions for the kind of things that FPV people might be concerned about? Like the ability to fly BVLOS. Technically, we're all doing it when we wear goggles. If we fly without a spotter, right? If we're flying with a spotter, then
Right.
technically we are within LOS.
Yes. Yeah. So this is kind of just, I think the ARC report, we went over it before, but I believe it was saying, stuff about shielded operations and just, general common sense stuff that we would want about the BVLOS stuff. So, everybody's already submitted comments. You can't submit one now. You can't go on there tomorrow and submit one, but you can watch and listen to what people already submitted and we'll talk to them about. So it's kind of interesting.
All righty. Next up, we have the cinematic of the week. Every week, Blunty picks a new drone cinematic to show.
I think you're going to like this one. This is a pretty exciting one.
I haven't seen it. I don't watch them beforehand.
Yeah.
If you guys have cinematics you think we should be showing, by all means, send them to news@fpvknowitall.com.
Along with any news you got.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look here. As usual, we are not going to share the sound because I don't want to get a copyright violation potentially, and also because we like to encourage you to go to the source and give them your views. But we'll go ahead and take a look here. World's largest FPV air gate. Here, let me full screen this. Oh man, I mean already oh wow, that's a lot of people. This has got to be some kind of a planned shot. Flying in a city? What?
I think this is Taiwan.
Makes sense. 3, 2, what? It's like a drone show. Oh my gosh, and it's an FPV drone flying. Oh, no, shut up! Oh my god.
Is this not the coolest shit?
And they're using drones to make air gates in the sky. Are you for real? Is he going to dive this? What? What? Shut up! That's insane! What the flippin' heck? Oh my god, that's insane. Wow. Okay.
This is really well done.
This is one of the best uses of a drone light show I've ever seen. That's amazing. That's amazing. A combination of FPV and the sort of autonomous drones. That's a good one. There's
Super
a link,
cool stuff.
There's a link in the show notes in the video description, guys.
Yeah, that was Juan's FPV, and that link is in the description. So very cool stuff.
Excellent. The link is in the show notes below, guys. It's in the video description, as always. All right, Blunty, the last segment we like to do every week is called It's Barely News. Stories that we thought were interesting enough to tell you about, but that were sort of just short, little pithy, or maybe we just didn't have a lot of details. Where are we going to start with this one?
All right, first up, Indigenous Tribes have been using drones to combat deforestation. We talked a little bit before about how they're trying to combat deforestation in the rainforest by taking, images of trees and stuff and trying to figure out which trees are dying and stuff. Well, they started recruiting Indigenous Tribes people to do this work for them. So basically, people are going out and communicating with these tribes, and then they're handing them and giving them drones and the ability to fly them and teaching them how to do this stuff so they can help save the forest that they're in. And they're teaching them about it, and they're basically teaching them to go up each day and take a survey image and come down, and then they drive those, they ride those images in to like a local center and upload them all for people to review and see like what actually is happening with deforestation. So it's pretty cool to see it like, the people who it matters to, those Indigenous tribes can help out and try to save their rainforest.
Nice. Oh, there's a lot of
some of them don't even know how to read.
Drones.
And some of them don't even know how to read, and they're flying DJI drones to check the rainforest and make sure it's okay.
I can think of a lot of jokes I could make about DJI drones here, but I'm worried that some of them could accidentally be insulting to the indigenous people when I mean them to be insulting to pilots of DJI drones, and so I'm going to stop.
Yep.
But Yeah. Okay. Moving right on from that. We have a story about an animal freed by a drone.
Yeah, this is a pigeon who was stuck on a wire. This is maybe the most It's Barely News we've done. This is a pigeon stuck on a wire.
Oh, poor pigeon!
There were local officers who took a DJI Mavic Mini, looks like.
Oh, the giant box cutter!
And strapped a box cutter on it. And we're able to get him down with a box cutter. They flung around and got him down.
So they took a DJI drone with a flying box cutter, and they went and approached the pigeon, and the pigeon was like, sir, what are you doing with that?
Don't think he had much choice, but yeah, they got him down.
Well, that's nice. I'm not sure how I feel about people sticking box cutters on drones, but fine.
The pigeon stays better because of it, so yeah.
What other good things are drones doing in the world, Blunty?
Well, this one giant drone in a series of giant drones is planting 40,000 trees a day at the Australian Botanic Gardens. So basically, they've got an invasive species, and they've been trying to kill it off and replant. And one of the problems we've had with replanting is it's just a lot of work. Planting 40,000 seeds is a lot of work, especially manually, having somebody go out, or even with a machine driving around. And then, there's terrain that's super hilly and crazy to fly on. And, there's, you could see the river there and stuff. There's all kinds of just stuff to get around and operate. And so they found that one of the most efficient ways they could do is literally just drop seeds from a drone across acres and acres and acres. So
I've heard of tree planting. It seems like it's more involved than this most times. Like they're sticking little seedlings in they're just dropping seeds, huh?
Yeah, here they're just dropping seeds because that's part of their normal process anyway, where they would normally just seed the areas, but they can't get seeds to the area easily. So they pre-map the areas with with drones to make sure they know where they're going, and then they have the drones fly over and seed it out. So
awesome.
They're saving 80% cost on seeding right now.
Love it. More great uses for drones. Now drones are good for planting stuff, but they're also scary, at least to birds at vineyards.
Yeah, so birds at vineyards are always a problem. They're eating the grapes, but they're also going in and they're killing the plants sometimes, destroying whole bundles and stuff. So they wanted to find safe ways to get rid of the birds, and one of the ways they found out is basically patrolling the areas with drones. So they find if they scare the birds over and over again with the drones, eventually the birds stop coming back, and or they're at least way more skittish of the area. And they found that they had, just in the first 4 years of testing, they've done 4 years of testing over the different seasons, and they've gotten it down to, they said they've seen less than half of the bird damage that they were seeing 4 years ago. So seems like a success.
So we've got one story where we're helping a bird, and another story where we're like, F you birds, don't eat. Can't have our grapes. Yeah. I'm getting mixed messages. Do we like the birds or do we not like the birds?
Go find other grapes, right? That's the thing. Right.
If it's a dog, the drone brings the dog a sausage. If a bird is trying to eat some grapes because it's hungry, no, F you, we need our wine. Okay, I get it.
It's the difference between one bird and 100 birds. But yes, I agree.
Right. It's the difference between a pet bird and a wild bird. You get over here and you be domesticated, you do something for us, we'll feed you all day long. That's the deal, birds. Your entire existence depends on your utility to humans. Literally, we're going to wreck the whole planet except for the things that are useful to us. And then those are going to go too. Oh, sorry. It's not time for a rant, though. It's time for It's Barely News. Next up, zip lines.
Well, zipline drones. So the company Zipline Drones, we've talked about a little bit. Walmart has one or two of these stations in operation where they launch these zipline drones, which are basically planes that are slingshot launched, and they can go 40-mile range or something like that and deliver a few pounds of payload. But now the zipline drones have a new feature on them. They've got acoustic detect and avoid systems. So Zipline is developed and is in action of this new system where they use acoustic detection to find out if anything's within 2 kilometers of them by sending out an acoustic signal and looking at the bounce back on it, which is pretty neat as a way to avoid air traffic.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm disappointed that it wasn't. I only saw the headline and I thought it was related to zip lines. I'm a little disappointed. But that's cool too.
Yeah.
Blunty, there's a lot of places in the world where you are prohibited from flying your drone. And the last story involves a new one. A new place! What are you going to take from us next, FAA?
So Antarctica. I don't know how many people this will affect. But for those that it does, they might be upset to find out that for a while it's been a recreational issue. You haven't been allowed to fly recreational in Antarctica. However, you have been able to do commercial for surveying, ice mapping, a lot of things they do in Antarctica with drones. Now, unfortunately, the local committee there has decided that, the international committee rather, has decided that they're not cool with drones. So maybe later, but right now they have deemed drone use is not okay. They don't know if there's impact to the environment, and they feel like there might be. They don't really cite why or what they think is wrong. I guess they think that...
noise pollution is what I typically hear.
Yeah, they also think that, I guess, people will crash them if, because the conditions are crazy, because it's super cold. Maybe the batteries will die out, or the wind gusts will take them in somewhere they don't expect. Those kind of things. So they have just decided to basically blanket ban them. You can get approval through the International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, but they are not granting many of these licenses. So, yeah.
It's because you know why they did this, Blunty? Because drones could see over the ice wall.
I knew you were going to say the ice wall.
And prove that the Earth is flat. They don't want you looking over the ice wall!
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up for the evening. It's you like it. You like it, Blunty. Come on, it's funny. I can cut loose a little bit and be less serious because you're usually straight.
Yeah.
It's great. I enjoy it. Alrighty. Okay, take us out. Well, I try not to laugh.
All right. So, that's the news for us. We people ask about a rant, but you got to send me stuff to rant about. If you think there's something rant worthy, you got to tell me about it at news@fpvknowitall.com, where we take all the news submissions.
Surely you have something you want to rant about every week, right? Just not FPV related.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not saying we should do the rant.
Yeah.
But if you were to rant about, oh my God, no, you're going to say something political, and then it's going to be all over.
I don't care anything about politics.
What would your rant be this week if you were to rant? Anything in the world.
I could do a Diablo Immortal rant.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What a joke that was. Wow. What a joke that was. All right, next week, Blunty's going to prep a Diablo Immortal rant. It's not FPV related, but I know you like gaming, and I think we would all enjoy it.
I could also respond to the rant you did. You did a gaming rant, right?
On the
last live stream.
About gaming and what's enjoyable in games. We should. You want to talk about gaming for like 10 minutes at the end for the people who stuck around?
Yeah, we could do that.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the one thing you mentioned was it must be a different kind of dopamine, and I think the secret is it's the same dopamine, and that's what's bad about it. Right? So we're in the for people who don't have context, the conversation was essentially
sum up the conversation.
Yeah, the conversation was essentially that Raid Shadow Legends is something you're doing a stream of. It won't be during normal stream time. It will be later as a stream.
I will be doing a sponsored Raid Shadow Legends stream because they offered me the right amount of money.
Yeah, so Raid Shadow Legends basically plays itself, and you were talking about how there's a trend for games to play themselves, or at least do a lot of the work themselves, right? Even Diablo Immortal does that, where it'll walk to the next location for you in a lot of cases. And so you were saying like how in your day, there was basically achievement, right? I believe this is what you're saying essentially. You're doing something, right? And you're getting something out of doing something, right? Like, and now you're not doing anything, but you're still getting something. And what where is it coming from? What's the dopamine coming from if you're not performing an action to do the thing, right? There's two
things. There is I just won the football game and I get a reward for having done that. And there's I am at football practice every afternoon, and that is gratifying in a different way. The doing the thing that leads to the reward, and it feels like games that grind themselves, it's like, let's just sit here until, oh boy, I've sat here long enough to get a reward. But they take away the gratification of doing the thing as if it didn't have value. That's, I think, where I was saying.
Yeah, 100%. And my thing is that where you derive the dopamine doesn't matter. It's all the same dopamine. So if someone has learned the dopamine interaction, like if I play, if I play this game and I grind for 2 hours and I suddenly get the next level and I can build the next thing and I can do the next thing, I get that dopamine rush and satisfaction from seeing the number pop up and the window go, and whatever happened, right? Because I earned it, right? I did all this stuff and earned it. But the question is, is it really because you earned it, or is it because the number went up, right? Like, are you familiar with the clicker genre?
I 100% agree with you. Go ahead. I agree with you, though.
Are you familiar with the clicker genre? Do you know what an auto clicker is?
100%.
Okay. So for people that don't know, basically I think the first one was cookie clicker, but essentially there's a game where you have a cookie and then you click the cookie and you get a cookie. So now I've got one cookie when I click it, and I keep clicking the cookie, I get more cookies. But the first thing you buy is basically a thing that clicks the cookies for you. So you buy a pointer finger that clicks cookies, and then you can spend more cookies to buy more clicks with the pointer finger. Or you can buy upgrades so that a click does more cookies. And then you can buy factories that produce cookies over time. And then you can buy, it just basically keeps expanding.
It's the whole idle genre, actually, I think, is the genre.
Yes,
the idle RPG, there's this whole genre of games where the idea is that if you don't want to play the game, it will just play itself in the background, and when you come back, look, all your characters have leveled up. And it's just like, to me...
However, if you don't maintain it, you're not being efficient. Because if you let it run all the time, then you didn't do the upgrades that would have made you get exponentially more money, because the money exponentially grows. It's not linear progression. Right? That's part of what draws you in and keeps you playing it, and that's also what makes the... to me, what makes the dopamine better, right?
But it doesn't. Here's the thing: it does give dopamine. Like, dopamine is a neurochemical, and like when you unlock that next level and bing, it's just like you're sitting at a slot machine and it goes ding 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 ding, and then your brain goes ah. So, but the thing is that everything else about the process has been stripped of all reward except the anticipation. So here's the thing about dopamine, and I'm not an expert on reward brain response, but I know I've done some reading. The problem is that if you get a reward consistently and too often, then you become desensitized and it's not as rewarding and enjoyable anymore. So when you're doing animal training, they have a thing called slot machining, where you don't reward the animal every time it does the behavior that's desired. You kind of do it semi-randomly, and that anticipation of, am I going to get a reward this time? What about this time? It's this sense of anticipation, and then, it resolves, and you get the dopamine when you get the reward. And the problem, the games are just inducing that state.
That comes from loot boxes. What you've described comes from a loot 100%. Box. But my point is, it doesn't matter if you worked to maybe get it, right? The slot machining you're talking about is the same slot machining that a loot box does. Because a loot box says you don't get it every time. Even though this game is playing itself, you don't get the best reward, but you might. And especially if you select this credit card, you have 10 more chances at maybe getting it. Yeah. Right. So I get what you're saying, but the way that they develop this is because everybody doesn't get it, because you get it specially. It feels special when you get it. They're creating a special interaction in your brain every time, right? I'm not getting the same character every time. I'm getting, this special 5-star character that they just released this week that was super rare. Right. And next week I got this 5-star character. So that's a different response in my brain, right?
I guess the thing about it that stands out to me is that it feels like it has been sort of stripped bare. It is to it, like, ultimately every activity that humans do is in some ways like a search for dopamine or there are other neurotransmitters. But at the end of the day, you enjoy things that you enjoy in part because you get, or your brain tells you that they're rewarding. But it's been stripped to this bare it feels manipulative almost. Whereas if it's like, hey, we made this game. Some parts of the game are going to be enjoyable. Eventually you'll get to level up. And it doesn't feel manipulative. It doesn't feel as, it's like the difference between, it's like crack.
But
it's like we've just taken away everything except, here's your hit.
If both people are enjoying it as much, like, who are you to say, I guess, is part of the problem, right?
And people do.
Yeah, like, that's part of the, maybe I don't want to, like, I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to each. Obviously, the reason I brought up Diablo Immortal was just the major issues that Diablo Immortal has with the way it's monetized. It's sneaky. There are other gacha games they're called gacha games is the specific term for games that like, you have to spend money to roll a slot machine, essentially, right? Even the early gachas were like literally slot machines you're putting fake coins into.
Unlockables, chance to get a rare item.
Yeah, but those all, almost every gacha game that's like big has a very clear pricing, especially from the first time you open the shop. It also has very clear results of the percentages when they come out, because loot box legislation in a lot of places
because
said you
like
need
Europe
to show.
will regulate them out of business if they're gambling, and so they.
Do you know Diablo Immortal found a way around that?
Go ahead.
Diablo Immortal makes you do 5-minute dungeons before they drop your loot at the end of the dungeon, so it's not a loot box. But you get to decide how much you invest in the dungeon to make it drop better gear, so it's like a loot box. So they've gotten around the loot box legislation because the legislation is written too concrete, and it doesn't stretch enough for that 5-minute difference. Yeah.
It's like, here's the thing. When I go into a casino, I know that this is a highly refined environment whose only goal is to give me just enough dopamine to keep me there long enough to lose all my money. But at least they serve me drinks while I'm there.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of these games are highly refined and highly manipulative of people's reward-seeking behavior in ways that, I mean, I don't know. I also could just be an old guy who doesn't get it. But it feels really, I don't know. It feels a little skeezy. I see it very similar to how I feel when I walk in a casino in Vegas. It's very similar to me. Yeah. Like, I can see behind it's just flashy lights and a bunch of stuff, and the house is winning all the odds, and the slot machines on odds are even better for them because they're flashy and fun to play and easy, right? And you don't have to have strategy with the slot machine. So, like, I think you could see behind a lot of different things like that, right? And, like, I think I don't know, like, I see them very similarly, though the newer games are getting worse, and that's the problem. Right? Well, they've realized that. I mean, they have access to information that casinos would kill for.
Yes.
They have.
They have access to the person at home. I mean, that's what the casino would certainly kill for. Is like, hey, this is on every phone. I mean, that was part of the online gambling thing, and all the regulation that came behind that. And
I saw. It's something. And to me, here's the thing that kills it for me. Here's why I usually don't enjoy playing this style of game. Like, occasionally, this style of game is done in such a way that you can play the game, you can have fun playing the game, and it doesn't feel... Oftentimes, when you play this game, it feels like that the enjoyable playing the game is just there to get you into the game long enough that they can rug pull you, and then suddenly you start losing, or you level off the curve, and then you can't win anymore, and you're not having fun anymore. And it's like, well, F you. Like, if you could fairly play without spending money, then I would be like, okay. But if I know that you are capable of tweaking the game to make it unfair to me because I didn't pay you money, I'm never going to trust you that you're not doing that. And then I'm not going to enjoy it.
I mean, Diablo Immortal is the active thing to talk about. But, when you get to the end of a 5-minute dungeon in Diablo Immortal, in any Diablo game, you are excited for the loot fountain. There's a big loot fountain that comes out of the end boss, and you get like 2 legendaries or 3 legendaries, and you're like, oh, these are cool. What did I get for drops? But basically the way it works now is like you get a much smaller fountain unless you pay money in, and then the more money you pay in, the more the fountain works. And like, just as an example for people who haven't been following this, I just want to give you some perspective into this. Okay, so like, you start a dungeon. Okay, you start a dungeon just basic. You get a little bit of loot. Or you can put in a $2.50 crest. A $2.50 crest gets you some more loot. You get a bonus loot at the end of the dungeon. You could also put in 2 crests or 3 crests. So you can spend $5 or $7.50 to boost the dungeon for even more loot. However, when you put in 3, it doesn't show up until you put in 3. But once you put in the 3rd crest, meaning you're willing to spend money, right? They already know who you are. Then 7 more crests pop up on the bottom. And you can only put in 7. You can't put in 1 or 2. You can put in another 7 to make 10.
For
so you
how
can
much?
spend $25.
25.
So it's basically $25. Yeah, because the crests are $2.50 each. Then that applies to all people in your party. So there's incentive for everyone in the party to boost to 25 because you're leeching off of the people who really spent money. If you're in the dungeon and you didn't spend money to help the
So they're manipulating
drops.
like social obligation as well.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, this
So
is
if
just
everybody
one
else
piece.
put in $25, you got to put in $25, or you're a mooch.
Yes. This is like yeah, it's just insane. I think they already announced they passed $10 million in revenue. Or no, I'm sorry, they passed 10 million users.
That's what's weird is it works. I don't understand. Yeah. I mean, I do understand.
Well, because we're the minority. We care about stuff like this.
Well,
like other people just download the fun thing and go play it and spend the money when they want to spend the money.
Here's what makes it skeezy. I actually, while you were talking, I've been thinking about it and thinking about what you're saying, and I think something clicked for me. It is, so let's say, back in the day, somebody makes an A-tier game, $60 game, Fallout, New Vegas, Diablo, whatever. They sell it, and it goes out there, and whether it works for you, they don't know you. There is no way for them to look at your play and go, oh, I see, this guy, we're going to get this guy, and tweak it to your individual limbic system, and then try and squeeze money out of you. Like, they make the game, they put the game out there, 18 million people play the game, some of them like it, some of them don't, and at the end of the day, maybe you buy the sequel or the DLC. But with these games, they have real-time information about you as a person and everyone else who's playing, and have the ability to very, very carefully refine it to squeeze as much money and to withdraw enjoyment. And that's the thing. I want you to give me a game that you think I'm going to enjoy. Full stop. I don't want you to say, hey, you haven't paid us enough money, so we're going to make you enjoy the game less. Unless you pay us.
Yeah.
Because then the more I enjoy the game, the more you could just like suck me dry. And I'm like, forget it. I'm not taking that first hit. I'm just going to go do something else.
Well, part of the problem with Diablo Immortal is that the first part of the game is very low on microtransactions and very high on, hey, this is a cool game. Like, hey, this is like a Diablo game. There's a bunch of pop-ups and it's mobile, but this is a Diablo game. And then you get into it, and the first transaction I think it offers is $1 because it wants you to get your credit card information and get you set up so that you can quickly pay. And once you got your credit card in, it's much easier to make that $20 transaction. So, yeah. Sneaky.
Alrighty.
I mean, there's so many other pieces to this, but yeah. Anyway.
I want to address one comment that I saw, which is, I don't remember who said it, but they said something like kids these days just want to load up the game and go into God mode and rush to the end and then beat the boss using cheats. And I identify with that. My son's 10 years old, and the first thing he does when he gets a game, most of the time, is he starts modding it. He installs mods. He loves cracking the game. He loves going into God mode and poking around. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't. He's like, hey, I finished this game today. And I'm like, you didn't finish the game. You didn't play the game. You were in God mode the whole time with a DLC gun that you modded in. But he had a great time for 12 hours playing the game. So who am I to judge? As my attitude. And I feel enjoy the games however you want to enjoy them. At the same time, if somebody said, man, I sure am enjoying heroin lately. Yeah, my dealer just keeps giving me more. It's like, well, maybe that there's a power imbalance in that relationship that makes it unhealthy and not in that, well, just, do enjoy yourself the way you want to enjoy yourself. And I feel like some of that may be true with some of these apps and games that, I don't know. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
A little gaming talk at the end of the live stream.
Can always talk about gaming.
Yeah. Blunty, you asked, you said once we should do a gaming podcast. I said I don't play enough games to really like participate. But I mean, we've just been talking for 20 minutes, so maybe I can participate. I don't know.
I remember saying during that conversation that I'm sure you could talk about them, but yeah, I mean, it works.
Maybe we should record a pilot. What do you guys think?
I'm down for that. I like games. I can talk about games forever. So. All right.
Well, I like talking to you. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap up. Hope you enjoyed that. And we're going to wrap up for the evening. See you next week. Happy flying, everybody.
Later, guys.
Oh, crap. No, wait, I didn't read the super chats. I got to read the super chats, Blunty. 1 second. Thank you, $5. Otis, thank you for $5. Get yourself on YouTube's Hot Ones, Joshua or Blunty. I'd love to go on Hot Ones, but I don't think they'd have me. Tay, thank you for a $20 super chat. Hey, guys, I've been lurking since April when I got a Tiny Hawk for my birthday. Building my first quad next week with your V2FC and the Gepard Mark V frame. Good flight controller. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you guys do, informative and entertaining. Okay, now for real. Oh.
What if you did like a FPV Hot Ones? Could you do something like that? Is there some like?
I mean, yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I'm not as good an interviewer as Sean Evans. He's amazing. We could try to do an FPV Hot Ones. I mean, he's done remotes.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you could do something like that where you send them 5 hot sauces and make them fly a drone while you talk to them and they eat hot sauces.
I just sit there and interview them, right? Do it like.
But then it's just Hot Ones, right? So like you got to do FPV Okay.
It's just Hot One. I mean, you could make them fly a drone, I guess.
I was trying to do some spin to make it FPV related, but
I mean, we could just steal the Hot Ones format. Rotoride did an episode once where they had to eat hot wings and fly. Vanover lost. He cannot hold his heat.
Yeah, that would be hard, especially with really hot sauce. That would be tough.
He was a pussy. Zoe's a freaking beast. Anyway, look it up. All right, folks. All right. That's going to do it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I almost forgot.